Well, that's not the way you want to end the game, where not only do you lose, but you have somehow your two best players manage to injure each other. I can't say I've ever seen that before. And it's just like, it just goes to more of the comedy of errors that this 2020-2021 Celtics season has been. And obviously, I hope Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown are both okay, and they both just bruised each other's legs. But Brown certainly looked pretty shaken up, and Tatum didn't look too good either. But before we get into speculating about what the injuries might be, let's talk about the game. In a game that I talked about the other day, the Celtics needed to take that historic comeback win the other night against San Antonio and use it as an inflection point, which means carrying momentum and winning the next game, the next couple games, and obviously here we are just two nights later, and they lose 119 to 129 to Portland. The game was in Boston, and the Celtics now are in danger of, as you just mentioned there, Leonard, in the chat, being the seventh seed potentially and having to be in this whole play-in tournament. And if you're in the play-in tournament, that means you have a chance of not even being in the playoffs. Now, ultimately, if we're going to take what I've been saying for most of the season into consideration, that the Celtics are a first-round exit no matter what, then perhaps it would be better for them to get into this play-in tournament and just lose and be a lottery team. Maybe you get lucky and you hit the jackpot and you're picking high in the draft. The odds of that obviously aren't very good, but I can tell you what the odds are worse of, which is you making a run for the title. So, do the math there. What would you rather have, the infinitesimal chance of winning the lottery or the even more infinitesimal chance of winning the title? Because at least it's possible that the Celtics win the lottery. It's not possible that they win the title this year or even get to the NBA Finals. So, I don't know. You got to look at it as what's the best thing for the team to do. And if this Tatum and Brown injuries are serious, then, you take even more consideration into that route of, getting into the play in and losing. I don't like to say that, but I don't know. They've just played themselves into such a hole that why would you have confidence in any game, play in series, whatever, in this Celtics team? They don't play consistent defense. They don't play with consistent effort. And some guys have good games, and then the next night they'll stink. And some guys have great shooting performances. Next night they can't hit the ocean with a basketball. The constant seems to be Jason Tatum right now, and that gives you sort of you love seeing him play well, but that also sort of gives you the fear that we've seen this time and time again in the NBA. When you have superstars playing at an unbelievable level and carrying the team, and the rest of the team isn't carrying their weight, those superstars tend to get unhappy. And I know Jason Tatum just signed a contract extension that kicks in next season, but in the NBA, I think having years on your contract hasn't proven really anything in terms of a disgruntled player wanting out. So the Celtics need to make sure that they are happy, and it's great that Jason Tatum is transforming into this unbelievably gifted scoring weapon, one of the better players in the league potentially. They have to make sure that they're surrounding him with the most and the best talent that they possibly can, because you don't want a situation like what happened in Houston happen with James Harden, and you end up getting having to move Jason Tatum because he's unhappy with the supporting cast. So something to keep an eye on as the years march on here. But again, talking about tonight, it just wasn't a good enough effort from the Celtics. Certainly, I think it's fair to blame some of the officiating tonight. The officiating was really poor. I tweeted this out, even by NBA standards. I think in general, fans, specifically Celtics fans, complain a little bit too much about the officiating. There's no hidden agenda against the Celtics. The officials in the NBA are just bad. They miss calls both ways. It usually evens out because they're bad both ways. Tonight, I think that favored the Blazers a little bit. Just in the second half alone, you saw two offensive goaltendings called in the Celtics. Then that, by my estimation, neither one was. So that's 4 points wiped off the board for the Celtics and momentum. One of them was a great putback jam by Tristan Thompson that would have had a lot of momentum carry the Celtics. They waved that off. Both of those I thought were really bad calls. Then I see Jake Nail in the chat mentioning the Marcus Smart ejection. That was ridiculous. Not just the fact that they ejected him for that, which it seemed, I don't know how you can eject somebody for that for a flagrant one. I've never even heard of that. It seemed accidental to me. And even if it wasn't, I don't think it was enough to warrant tossing somebody from a game, especially because the initial contact was made by Nurkic, who set the moving screen and sort of positioned Marcus Smart's body into an angle where he hit him in the nether region. So I thought that was a ridiculous ejection. I thought the fact that it took them 6 minutes of real time to figure out what they wanted to call was absurd. I've said this on this show, and I think I've said this on my Pick and Roll NBA podcast with myself and Sap, that in terms of replay, the NBA needs to have a fast rule that you have 60 seconds to make a call tops. If you can't change the call in a minute's time, even 45 seconds, I might say, then the call on the floor stands. It's whatever they called initially, because it just kills the game to have to go through. I mean, again, 6 minutes of real time to stop and look at screens. That's ridiculous. We need a separate party looking at these things. It can't be the NBA officials from the game, and it can't be other officials in the booth. You need a private individual firm or whatever looking at replays, because the refs are unwilling to overturn their call a lot of the time, and it just takes too long. But that's a story for another show. So between the ejection, which was ridiculous, the those two goaltendings I mentioned, play that screwed the Blazers over was they missed a pretty blatant blocking foul on Peyton Pritchard. They called a charge. Pritchard's foot was pretty clearly in the restricted area. So a really horribly officiated game. I'd say it tilted more to the Blazers' favor. But that's obviously not the only reason the Celtics lost again. They gave up almost 130 points, 129 points. They gave up 34 points in the first, 37 in the second, and 32 in the third quarter. Giving up 30 plus points in 3/4 of a game. Hard to ask your team to win a game that way. Hard to have confidence in your team to win when you're just playing such lackluster defense. Surprisingly, a guy who didn't play too terrible defense tonight was Evan Fournier, who had one of the better defensive plays I've seen from anybody on the Celtics this year, where he got a couple steals in one possession and was able to dish it off to Tatum for a jam the other way. So credit to him, Fournier, who's typically a sieve defensively and makes James Harden and Steph Curry look like Gary Payton defensively. But he was pretty good tonight. So let's go into the box score. Again, the final score, 129-119, Portland, as they move to 36-28 on the year. The Celtics dropped to 34-31. For the Celtics, the starters tonight were Jason Tatum, Tristan Thompson, Marcus Smart, Evan Fournier, and Jaylen Brown. No Kemba Walker tonight, as he's still dealing with an oblique injury. Tatum played 37 minutes, was really great again tonight. Not 60 points, great, but a really, really fantastic performance for him too. 11 of 19 from the floor, 4 of 5 from 3, 7 of 7 from the free throw line, 2 rebounds, 5 assists, and a block. He had 33 points. The one number you don't want to see, though, is the turnover margin, where he had 6. That's, again, far too many. That night that he had 60 2 nights ago, he had a sterling 0 turnover night. So 6 turnovers is too high for Tatum. We want that number to be 2 or below. Tristan Thompson was very poor in this start tonight. He actually had the worst plus minus in the game with a minus 20. Just 2 points for Tristan in 23 minutes, 1 of 6 from the floor, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. He did have 3 blocks. Not a good game from Tristan Thompson. He struggled with the height and the size of the Blazers between Kanter and Nurkic. He wasn't able to rebound effectively or do anything effectively in the paint. This is a tough matchup for him, but he did not rise to the occasion, and so he struggled tonight. Marcus Smart was okay tonight, struggled shooting the ball a little bit. 35 minutes, 4 of 14 from the floor, 3 of 9 from 3, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, and 11 points on the night. Obviously a tough task having to guard Dame Lillard. Dame had a pretty good game for himself, 26 points. He was somewhat efficient from the floor, but overall decent defensive performance for Marcus Smart, not so great offensively. Evan Fournier was really good tonight after being terrible the past basically since he's come back from COVID. But he was good tonight. 34 minutes for him, 8 of 10 from the floor, 5 of 7 from 3-point line. He had 5 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals that I mentioned earlier, and 21 points. Jaylen Brown, 35 minutes for him, really struggled shooting the ball tonight for the second game in a row. 6 of 22 from the floor, 1 of 9 from 3. Dreadful there. 3 or 4 from the free throw line. 11 rebounds, though, and 4 assists, and he finishes with 16 points. Just a terrible shooting night for Jaylen, and of course, him and Tatum go down. with an injury at the end. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second before we wrap up. Just taking a look at the bench, you got another really good game from your rookies tonight. Aaron Nesmith was really good. 20 minutes, 6 of 7 from the floor, a perfect 4 of 4 from 3, 4 rebounds, 16 points for him. Continues to play really well and give the Celtics great energy off the bench and is starting to shoot a lot more consistently. You love to see that from Nesmith, who's becoming more part of this rotation. Robert Williams still struggling to get his feet back under him after missing some time with injury. 24 minutes for him, 2 of 3 from the floor, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 blocks, and 5 points. You'd like to see all those numbers up. The blocks are fine, but the rebounds need to be higher. The points need to be higher. Hopefully some more shot attempts for him too. Peyton Pritchard, very good in his 19 minutes of playing time. He was 4 of 6 from the floor, 3 of 5 from 3, 6 rebounds, no assists for him, which is odd considering he's a point guard, and 6 rebounds is high considering he's the smallest guy on the floor. 13 points for him. Tremont Waters, just 1 minute, didn't attempt a shot, and Romeo Langford got in for 14 minutes, 1 of 2 from the floor, 2 points, no other, only logged 2 other fouls is his statistical contribution. And again, Celtics lose 129-119. So the big story actually might be not the final score of the game, though that's obviously disappointing. But in the final 40 seconds or so of this game, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown collided legs towards near the sideline at midcourt. Both hobbled off. Jason Tatum seemed to be able to get out under his own power. Jaylen Brown needed a couple teammates to help him to the locker room. They did both go to the locker room. You hope it's nothing really bad. Brown did seem to get the worst of it. You're always nervous about injuries. That's obviously not a very thick part of your body, right where they collided, which is like lower shin, high ankle. So you hope nothing's broken. You hope it's just a bad bruise. Like I said on Twitter, it's kind of ironic. This team's mascot is a leprechaun, and they have clovers as their alternate logo, and they've just been so snake bit with injuries and COVID and all that stuff. It's like, and then you have a play where your 2 best players injure each other. It's like, how on earth does that happen? But that's the 2020-21 Boston Celtics for you, unfortunately. So hopefully Brown and Tatum are okay. I would imagine that Brown probably you will not see him in the next game, which is on Wednesday. So at least they have a few days off when they face Orlando. In Orlando, they follow that up on next week's schedule. So Wednesday at Orlando, Friday at Chicago. They have a back-to-back Sunday and Tuesday against the same team, Miami. Both those games are in the Garden, and Miami and Boston are neck and neck in the standings right now. So those games will be of the utmost importance. And then they round out the season with 3 road games at Cleveland, at Minnesota, at New York. That game at New York might be incredibly important too. But those 2 games in Boston against Miami are looming as the most important of the season. So hopefully Brown and Tatum are at full strength for that. Hopefully Kemba Walker is back. And we'll see. Otherwise, the Celtics are in danger of that play-in tournament. And based on how they've played this season, you really don't know if they can even survive that play-in tournament. So we'll have to see. I will be back on Wednesday for the post game for that Magic. It's a bit of an earlier start, 7 o'clock as opposed to 7:30 typically. So I'll adjust your schedules accordingly. Thanks everybody for watching. Remember to give me a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and comment. I like to read the comments, and I always comment back. I appreciate everybody in the chat. Shout out to Leonard and Jake, and I will talk to you guys later. See you, everybody. Yes, Leonard, I'll be turning into the World Girls for sure. Thank you for asking that. Everybody go watch the World Girls right now if you're not watching already. Check it out on YouTube. Just switch right over to theirs because I'm done. See you, everybody.